Wait, what is this shit?
The Not Safe for F***ing Worker Placement podcast.
I flipped the board. I despise that game. Oh, shit. That sounds... Oh, wait.
Hello and welcome to episode number 2 of the Not Safe for Worker Placement podcast. Podcast about board games by me, Ben.
And me, Leandra.
We're married and we're going to talk shit about board games. So here we go. Episode number 2 is off to the races. Who would have thunk it? But we made it.
We did.
At least to beginning of it. I don't know if we'll make it to the end. I've started the intro about 500 times now. But we're going to roll with this one and be it as it may. We're going to start off this episode just like we did the first, talking about games we've played recently. We got quite a bit of gaming done over the weekend, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Holiday weekend, made some good games.
Yep. We got some friends over, and the kid was away, so the mice will play. We played a game that my friend bought. It was called Dice Forge. It's by Libellude and designed by Regis Bonasse. And I think it's a really interesting dice rolling game. I mean, there's only so many things you can do with a dice rolling game, but this one takes a mechanism that was, I've only seen it in one other game called Rattlebones, which by all accounts I heard wasn't a very good game, but you take the dice and the face pop off the dice, and then you can change that. So you're basically building your own dice throughout the game. I thought that was really cool. What about you?
I really enjoyed it. I struggled at first, trying to figure out, because with the moonstones and is it firestones? Is that what they're called? Making sure that you had the right ratio on both dice, because you didn't want too much, all your power points on one dice and not on the other. So, a couple turns in, I figured out what the right ratio was for that, but I may have, put the wrong faces on a couple sides of it.
Yeah, and it's really, but see, the awesome thing is like the whole theme of the game. Well, I really don't even know the theme. I guess you're on some island of the gods, and you're trying to get the favor of the different gods. There's a minotaur and a mermaid and, harpies and all these different things. And you're going around, and on your turn, you can either use your gold resource that you've gotten to buy new faces of your dice, or you can use these moonstone resources that you've gathered from rolling your dice to buy cards that give you special effects throughout the game and can score you points and stuff right when you take them. So there's a lot of paths to victory, because you can go heavy on the moonstone, you can go heavy on the firestone, you can go heavy on just getting points. You can put points right on your dice, and every time you roll them, you get points. So there's just a lot of different ways. And I played it twice now, and I think it's, for what it is, for as light of a game as it is, it's beautiful. The artwork and everything. It's
really fast paced too. Yeah. I like that it's not a slow thinking game. It's super fast. You roll and you get to roll your dice on everyone's turn. So you keep your attention. You don't lose attention at all.
Exactly. I think that's the coolest thing, is that when we were first learning it, it was like, so we're just going to roll our dice on our turn, and then everybody's going to go around and roll their dice, and that's going to get boring. But the coolest thing is you roll your dice on everybody's turn. So you're always getting stuff, and you're always being able to plan what you're going to do with it. And I really think that's really good. So I've got a little audio of our first impressions. I'm going to start doing that with some of these games when I remember to. It's just on my phone, so the audio quality won't be quite as good. But I'm going to stick these little interstitials in just to get our first thoughts, because we'll probably, especially Leandra, will never remember a game as well as right after she's played it.
Don't judge me.
So I had this idea to just take a little audio of them right after we played. So we're going to give a little bit for Dice Forge. All right, so we just played Dice Forge from Libellude, and we're going to say our first impressions on it. We've got Vaughn and Leandra here. Vaughn, why don't you start out? It's your second time playing it, and it's your game. What do you think about it?
I like the mechanism quite a bit of upgrading your dice, and the one thing I really like about the game is there are so many paths to victory, because the upgrades that you choose really depend on what you're going to get next time, because they stack on each other in really great ways. It's a good game, and every time I've played it, I've wanted it to last a few more rounds. So I think it's a good game.
All right, Vaughn. This is one of those games that we played at a game night, and then we sat down to play it and got about 2 rounds in, and I was like, I'm going to buy this game for sure. And you were like, well, I was going to buy it. So I said, I probably don't need it. And you went and immediately bought it. You're like, time out. I'm going to go buy this game, right? So.
Yeah, just a couple of rounds in, I knew it was going to be one that I would be playing quite a bit. So I didn't want to waste any time because there wasn't very many copies at the store when we got there.
All right, Lee, this was your first time playing it. What are your first impressions of Dice Forge?
I liked it. I thought that it was kind of slow going in the beginning. You have to kind of build up your dice and figure out what, like Vaughn said, what path you're going to take. But I thought it was pretty fun, and I can't wait to play again.
Awesome. Well, I really liked it too, and I agree with them that there are many paths to victory. I mean, there's 2 basic ideas of going for the moonstone or the red firestone or whatever it's called, but within that there's so many different paths, and it depends on what cards come out, because there's some randomization of what cards come out each game, and some are more advanced, and I just think it's really cool, and it has a lot of replayability. Like, I'd play this right away again, so I think we're all giving it a thumbs up. All right, that was our first impressions of Dice Forge. So would you want to play that one again, babe?
Absolutely. Vaughn owns the game, so he needs to come back this weekend so he can play again.
Yes, I agree. I really want that game, but I'm trying to tell myself that I don't need it because he has it.
You don't need it, honey.
So after that, we did play one of my games. Leandra bowed out gracefully for this middle section, and Vaughn and Craig and I played a game that I picked up called Age of Thieves. It really drew me because of the theme. It's like sort of like Thief, the video game, where you're like a thief with special powers, and you're sneaking around the town and using contraptions and gizmos, trying to collect jewels and stuff and steal things out from under these guards that are on the board spread out, and they have their own program movement. So it's like everyone for themselves, but you're also against the game because the game is working to try to capture you. And the whole goal is to get to the center palace and steal the king's jewel. It's this big red ruby looking thing. And once you do that, then the game really starts, because then it becomes, if you escape with the jewel, you just win flat out. And all the points that everyone else got doesn't matter. So they start using all their gizmos and gadgets to steal it from you. And you're trying to get as fast as you can off the board. And it was really cool. I thought it was really cool. I think the other two might have thought it was a little lackluster, but I think they also may not have been playing it in the spirit that I was playing it in, of just, it's fun and kind of light. It's a pretty simple game, not that complicated, but lots of pieces and lots of moving pieces going on all the time. And I think they thought it was going to be a highly strategic game, and it really wasn't, because as soon as I grabbed the jewel, it just got stolen from me in the same turn, and then it got stolen from Vaughn, who stole it from me. You know, it just went right around, and then Craig just ran off the board. I mean, it was over like that. But if played with the right attitude towards it, then I think it's really fun. Gorgeous pieces, you know, all miniatures and stuff. But you came down and saw it, and you were like,
not for me. Not for me. Well, it looked like a strategic war game is how the pieces were laid out, which is not my style of game. That's more for you boys.
Yeah, I think she thought we were playing Risk or something, whatever.
Yeah, it looked like it.
But I actually liked it. I would like to try it again, you know, with that in mind, that it's just kind of a beer and pretzels, you know, popcorn type game. It's not to be taken that seriously, because you will get some take that on you in that game. So that's Age of Thieves, and it is by designer Slawomir Stepien, and I'm sure I got that exactly right, and published by Galacta. So after that, Lee rejoined us, and we played a new one that I was very excited about. I talked about it on the last one, as the Splendor Killer, and I had played it once before, or a couple times before actually, and went ahead and bought it. It's called Century Spice Road, published by Plan B Games and designed by Emerson Matsuchi, who is a really good up-and-coming designer. He designed Spectre Ops, and I don't know, I like I've stated before, I completely hate Splendor, and I got to admit, this is very similar to Splendor.
It is very similar.
But it works for me in a way that Splendor doesn't work, and I really like it. So what did you think about it?
I thought it was great. It was very, very similar to Splendor, so I was surprised that you actually liked it. But I enjoyed it. I wanted to play again. I think we did, didn't we? I lost and we immediately played again, which says a lot. So when I lose and I immediately want to play again, it's a good game.
Yes, I have some audio of it that I'll play in just a minute, but I'll give you a brief description of the game. It's basically, it is a game boiled down to its pure essence. Like, it's literally just, it has beautiful artwork, which is completely secondary because you never really pay attention to it. And the theme is about trading on the spice road in the 14th century or something like that. But really that doesn't matter because what you're doing is you're taking cubes and you're turning them into other cubes to satisfy scorecards. That's really all it is. But it's very addictive kind of in the play of it. So basically you lay out you get a hand of starting cards. Everybody gets the same 2 cards. And then you lay out some other cards that you can put in your hand. And so on your turn, and then some scoring cards up at the top. And on your turn, all you can do is either satisfy one of the scoring cards, take one of those other cards into your hand, or pick up the cards that you've already played out of your hand. And that's that simple. That's basically the rules. There's a couple of, a little bit more to it, but that's basically it. You could teach it in 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was easy to learn, except for the first game we had. So the cards that allowed you to just take the cubes were at the very end of the pile.
Yeah.
And so we kind of struggled. Like we had to use like every 3 turns, all of us were having to pick back up our 3 cards just so we could get a little bit of a handful of cubes in our hands. We had something to play with. So.
Definitely. Because the mechanism depends on like getting easy to get cubes are the yellow ones. It goes yellow, red to green to brown. The browns score more points and they're harder to produce. So you will get cards that'll be like four yellows. Well, you can turn that in for 2 greens and a brown, something like that. And so you're trying to do those types of things. And if you only start out with cards that give you 2 yellow cards and then upgrade to 2 separate cubes. So if none of the cards come out to claim that give you other resources, then you're stuck just like getting your 2 cubes and then turning them into something else and then picking up your cards and then getting your 2 cubes. So sometimes the engines can be really slow, but eventually those cards come out where you can do something with your cubes and then you just start rolling, and then you can play like 4 or 5 cards in a row. It's really just about building an engine and then getting your cards in order and playing them in the right order and watching it go and trying to satisfy those scoring cards. So we're going to play the audio of our first impressions, and we'll be right back. All right, we just finished up playing Century Spice Road from Plan B Games, designed by Emerson Matsuuchi. I played it 3 times now. I'm 2 for 3, I think, on it, and it's the Splendor Killer, in my opinion. Everybody said that, and I was like, well, if it's too much like Splendor, I'm not going to like it anyway because I hate Splendor. But it's the best parts of Splendor and none of the worst parts, I think. Lee, what did you think for your first time playing it?
Well, I lost and I played again. So I really don't think I need much more of a review than that. So we're good. Thumbs up.
Nice. Yeah, we played twice in a row, which is kind of rare for some of these games, but it's quick and easy. So, Vaughn, what did you think?
I've played it a couple of times now, and I agree. It's a really good game. I don't think I'm going to completely put away Splendor, but this is a really good game that I would be fine playing in lieu of, seeing as you hate Splendor.
Good. I hope to never see Splendor again. Vaughn and I tied on that last game, and one thing of note is the tiebreaker is pretty lame. It's just the last person to take a turn that was tied wins. I thought that was kind of lame, but that made me win, so thumbs up for me.
Thumbs up.
All right, babe, we're back from our first impressions of Century Spice Road by Plan B Games. And so you definitely would play this one again, right?
Absolutely.
You definitely never want to play Splendor again, right?
Not correct.
Come on now. Help a brother out.
We don't even own Splendor.
I know, but if anybody ever says it, I'm just going to always keep this game on me at all times. And it's like, have you ever tried this? And if they're like, we really want to play Splendor, I'll be like, screw you, I'm out. So that's it for Century Spice Road. I highly recommend it. I think it's a really good, just simple game. All right, now we're going to move into our second segment, the main one of the episode, where we're going to talk about something that we do a lot of, which is 2-player gaming, and in particular, games that are made for 2 players. So, we play a lot of games that aren't just 2-player games as 2-player, and some work better than others. A lot of games work really well with 2 players, and I really hate to get a game that doesn't play 2 players. You have several games that are 3 and up, and I hate that because they don't get played as much.
Sometimes you find things on Google that kind of helps revise the rules a little bit so that you and I can play just 2-player.
Definitely. There's 2-player variant of Catan is one thing that we first started out playing. Is I got Catan and I was like, it's awesome, let's play this game. And then I was like, oh, that's for 3 players. So that was a bummer, but there's a really good 2-player variant for it. And there are some 2-player versions of Catan out now. Oh, speaking of which, just on the side, this won't excite you as much, but I just saw an announcement yesterday that they're making a Game of Thrones version of Catan, which
fun.
Sounds crazy, but
is it going to be full of porno and naked people?
Well, we can only hope. But it's like Catan got bought out from Mayday Games, who had it forever. No, it wasn't Mayday. Excuse me. Mayfair. They had it for years, and then they lost the license. And so Asmodee, the big company that you always hear me talk about, that's buying up every board game company there is, they bought it up, and everybody knew something would probably come of that because they own all these IPs. Well, they own Fantasy Flight now, and Fantasy Flight has the license for Game of Thrones, so it was only a matter of time before they did that. But I saw a little write-up on it, and it looked really cool. Like it's going to be Catan plus some other things, kind of like we have the Egypt version that adds some things on top of it. And when they do that, usually when they make a special edition of that, it's designed by Klaus Teuber, the guy who designed Catan, and now he designs everything with his son, Benjamin, I think, or Ben Teuber. They designed together that game, Smugglers, where you're smuggling the gems inside of the Play-Doh stuff, and you try to...
Yes, that's a fun game.
Yeah, that was really cool. They designed that together, and I think they're designing this Game of Thrones version of Catan. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. That was an aside, but I'm excited about that because... yeah,
I'm trying to wrap my head around a Catan version of Game of Thrones.
It'll probably
that's
just have
weird.
It'll probably just have different pieces for the houses and stuff. But I think there is because it looked like in the pictures, there's separate boards and stuff that aren't in Catan. So there's you got your hex pieces, but then there's some other kind of sideboards that do something. I don't really know what, but anyway, we can hope that it'll be good. I like Catan, so might as well give it a shot with a better theme. But we're going to not talk about Catan really any more than that, and we're going to talk about some 2-player games. Now, that's funny that some of these are from the company I was talking about, Mayfair. They have a line of just for 2 games, and 2 of them that we're going to talk about today are from that line. And the first one is Tronbon from Mayfair, and it's a 2-player only card game designed by Helmut Oli, who has the coolest name in board games because who else is named Helmut? But he designs really heavy games normally, like these big train games. 18XX is what it's called. It's because they're 1822, 1826, 1840 something, and they're just these big, huge, complicated train games about trading stock and all this stuff. He designs a bunch of those, and then also designed this cool little card game. It's basically about expanding the railways in Germany, and probably the 1930s, I would say, 1920s era artwork. And it's basically works like you have multi-use cards, so you get dealt a hand of cards, and you can either buy trains with them, which are colors of train stations that you can put down in front of you and start building building stacks off of, or you can play to the middle, a color card to the middle. And once 8 of them are played to these different colors in the middle, then that color train or rail line scores. And then you look at what you've gotten and you score that color. So it's pretty interesting because you can also on your turn take any of the cards that you get and just flip them over and use them as money. And then you can use money to buy better train stations, which give you multipliers on your scoring. So it sounds complicated, and actually, when I first learned it out of the rule book, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. So I just had to lay it all out and then start doing it. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I see what you're trying to do. And I taught it to Leandra, and it's become one of her favorite go-to little 2-player games. What do you think?
It is one of my favorites. When I first started learning how to play, it caught me because they had the Joker or the wild card ones.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And then I didn't realize because you only can go up to 10, I think, right? The numbers go through 1
Yeah, it's
through
something
10.
like that. Yeah, 1 through 10,
And then once your 10 is done, then you score those points as a whole.
Yeah,
right.
You get a bonus scoring. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Joker, I thought the Joker would make you go up like
they
to
don't
10,
count.
but they don't count.
Yeah, they just count as one of your cards that gets you to your scoring. Yeah, we're not. I did not explain it well enough to play the game by any means because it's sort of hard to explain without just seeing it laid out on the table. But yeah, there's a few things like that where you can get because you're only basically going to score a certain number of times in the game. It's like 9 times and then the game's over. But if you keep playing a bunch of cards on different colors on your little tableau that you're making, you can get bonus scores, and there's no end to how many you could do. It just depends on how many stations you buy and put out. You can keep making more.
So we try to not focus on the same colors.
Yeah, that's kind of the strategy, because if you're both going for the same color, then
you're both going to
score
make a
less.
bank every time. Yeah.
So I think it's really cool. I would recommend it. I don't see a lot said about it for that 2-player line that kind of has some really good games in it. I don't hear people talking about this one. I think it's kind of under the radar game, but I really like it.
I don't feel that we play it enough. I ask, okay, every time Ben comes home from Springfield, he has a new game. So I like to play games that I already know how to play more than once. For some reason, that's against the rules. And I try, I'm like, let's play this game. I don't remember the names of them, of course. So let's play the one that does
That's
this
why I
and
never
this.
know what you're talking about. You're just like, let's play that one game. And I'm like, what?
One game with the train and the colors. And then he's like, no, I got this new one. I don't want to learn any new ones right now. I want to just play the fun ones that we already know how to play.
I'm kind of getting to that point, but then I keep buying games, so I want to go back and play. I want to go back and play some of the, the oldies but goodies. But I also I love learning new games, so I really do like that. But you're right. I need to play some of these games more times because they're good games.
They are good
and
games.
They need to be played. And it's kind of something to be said for when you already know how to play a game.
You don't have to take 30 minutes to learn a game.
But then it's so long between the times we play them where it usually ends up taking a little bit of time to relearn them anyway. So, and you don't remember them anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Also true.
So, but I really like it. That's Trombone by Mayday Games, designed by Helmut Oli. And I think the second one we'll talk about, Lee was like, case in point, I pulled out some boxes for her to look about. Like, here's here's some few of our 2-player games that I know you like. And she's like, I recognize all of these, but what's this one? And she held up one of my favorite 2-player games. It's Seven Wonders Duel, designed by Antoine Bauza and somebody else. Who else is on that box, babe? It's another really big designer that I'm blanking on right now. Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala.
Cathala.
Okay. And I should know that because Bruno Cathala is my favorite designer. He designed Cyclades, and that's one of my favorite games. So Seven Wonders has been around for a long time. It's a card drafting game, kind of pioneered that idea of a large game with card drafting. And this is a shrunk down version for 2 players. You're basically getting cards off these pyramid type layouts where some cards are face up, some cards are face down, and the cards overlap each other. And the cards that are overlapped by other cards can't be taken until the cards that overlap them are gone. And you're trying to get resources to build towards making wonders, hence the name Seven Wonders. Once somebody builds the 7 wonders, that's all the wonders that can be built. And one of them that's in the games, there's 8 possible in every game. One of them won't get built, obviously. So, it goes from the Sphinx to the Hanging Gardens to the, Pyramid of Giza.
Is that the one where you put
You still don't remember?
No,
You're looking right at it.
Sorry. So is that the one where you put the wonders off to the side? So you have your pyramid in front of you and then you put and then you get extra points. Each different wonder gives you a power or gives you extra resources or something like that.
Yeah, it gives you resources when you build
I'm trying,
them.
babe. I'm trying.
You've played this game 4 or 5 times.
I know. I'm sorry.
I can't believe you don't remember. But anyway, I just think it's a great design, and it's probably a better version of Seven Wonders than the original game. And now there's an expansion out for it. I'd like to get that so that maybe we can play it and you'll remember it next time. But it's basically, you can win 3 ways. You can win by just points at the end of the game if nobody wins the other 2 ways, or you can win by military might, or you can win by science. And so like if you take military cards, almost every time you take one, you're like inflicting some damage on the other player. And there's a kind of seesaw back and forth tug of war that goes on with that. And if you get all the way to their side with your military marker, then you've beaten them. And you win immediately. And if you get, I forget how the science of victory works, but somehow if you get one of the science symbols in your tableau, then you win. So the other player has to always constantly watch what card you're taking so that you don't get that easy win like that. Because if you're not paying attention, you could just easily grab all those science cards and just win. So it's pretty well balanced like that. And it's a lot of fun because it's super simple to teach. It's like, you need 2 bricks and a wood to build that thing. So you're looking at the cards like, I need to get more bricks. I need to get more wood, and you just keep doing that until the end of the game. And it goes through 3 phases, and they all have different like layouts, weird layouts of this pyramid type shape that make you, have access to less cards at the very beginning of the turn, and then more come out, or more cards at the beginning of a turn, stuff like that. And Leandra is looking at me like, I just do not remember this game at all.
We apparently need to play it soon.
Yeah, we need to play it because it's a great game. I've played it several times. They have tournaments up at the game store that I play at a lot. They have 7 Wonders tournaments, and I haven't been able to get into one of those, but I would like to try one sometime. So that's 7 Wonders Duel by Antoine Bauza and Bruno Cathala. I believe that's published by Asmodee also.
So you said expansion, that you said they're coming out with an expansion. It reminds me that we played Dixit this weekend with the new expansion.
Dixit that we talked about on our first episode as one of our favorite all-time games and our daughter's favorite game. Yeah,
those expansion artwork cards are awesome.
Yeah, they're really cool. I think it's the Daydreams expansion that I got for it, and it has a completely different art style than
They're very dark and mysterious, and I really, really like them. Those were fun.
Cool. They were a little more monotone. Like each card was like, it would be more over, like more blue all like over, or more brown.
Colors,
yeah, muted colors. But really cool, weird artwork.
Yeah.
Definitely a different artist than the first couple of sets. So
do they have different expansions that have different types?
Yeah. Now they do. They stuck with the first couple was the same artist. And then the next 3 or 4, I think, I think they got 6 or 7 expansions out. But the last 3 or 4 have had different artists on them. And they've gone to that more different styles in each release,
Oh, okay.
So I'd like to get some more of those. But, man, they're expensive for those expansions. It's like $30 for an expansion.
Wow.
So I don't have every single one of them. Plus, I'm running out of room in the box.
Yes, you are.
But we dug Dixit again.
Yep.
Except for your aunt who hates it.
Sue hates it.
Yep.
She lost horribly.
She did terribly. Lily won for the first time.
She did.
I think it's for the first time. Technically, I won, but I just didn't take that extra point. So.
Oh, and we forgot to mention that other game in the first segment about what we played this weekend. The one with the aircraft thingy.
Okay, yeah. So we also played a couple more.
We played with Lily.
Yeah, we played with Lily. We played Celestia, which is a really cool push your luck game about traveling in an airship as far as you can go on your adventure and pushing your luck because you roll dice on your turn. When you're the captain, you roll dice, and you have cards in your hand that have symbols on them, and you have to match the symbols that you roll on the dice. And if you can do that, then you move on. But the trick of it is you can tell everybody that you can make it, and they can believe you. And if you don't have the cards, unless someone has a special card that can make you reroll dice or something, you just crash and take everyone down with you. Because the kicker is the captain can't jump off the ship. So he wants to bring everyone else down with him. If you don't believe that the captain can make it, even if he says he does, you can jump off at the city that you're at and take a scoring card. And
Lily was fantastic because she was totally bluffing us. She kept on saying, I don't have the cards. Like, so stone-faced. I don't have the cards.
The first time, we let her in halfway through the game because she's like, oh, I want to try this. So I just gave her a hand of cards and she hopped in, and I was like, I just explained it to her like literally in 2 seconds, like what she could do. And then she rolled the dice and looked at it and goes, I don't have them. And then everybody jumped off the ship, and then she just went on by herself to get. And she played half the game and scored more than 3 players in the game.
Yeah, she beat me, and she only played half the game.
So, and then she's like, I like this game. So yeah, that was Celestia, and that's a really cool game.
That was super fun.
There's an expansion that just came out for that one, which now I know that we like, and I'm going to go and pick that up because it's just more cards and special powers and stuff. So.
Well, and it was nice to find another one that Lily liked too.
Yeah, that was great. So now we'll get back to our 2-player
Sorry.
games. No, that's fine. We should have mentioned that earlier on, but yeah, that was a great game. It was a hit, and I'd had it for a little while, and I just was waiting for the right time to pull it out.
Yeah, because even Sue and Timmy wanted to play it again after lunch.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep.
Now we'll talk about another 2-player one in our feature, and I think we'll go with Leandra's current favorite one that she also didn't recognize when I brought it up. She's like, have I played this?
But I did remember this one, though.
Yeah. I was like, you've asked to play this for like the last 3 weekends. Every time I say, let's play a game, you're like, let's play that one. And then I figure out what she's talking about finally. And then I brought it out and she goes, I don't think I've ever played this. And it's Gwent. And it's a little weird because it's not really, I mean, I guess I could look up the designer of it, but it's a game that comes from the Witcher series of books and video games. Actually, I just finished reading all the books, and I don't think Gwent is in the books at all, but it's from the video game. And now there's a standalone version that you can download online to play it. And it's just a card game a la Magic or Hearthstone.
Yeah, it's like battling with cards. So,
yeah,
and then Ben made a board for it, which was super fun. The first board attempt was a crash. It
wasn't super fun. It was
crash and burn attempt.
It was like, son of a bitch, because I'm gluing down on this big giant poster board. I'm gluing down these. I paid like, because I wanted a high quality print, so I bought a poster print at like Walmart and paid like $24 or $26 or something for it. And then immediately, I'm so impatient in these type of things. I go in there and I spray it on the adhesive, and I'm like sticking it on there, and it just got a fold in it right away. And I try to pull it off, and it ripped. I was letting out some severe expletives.
Yes.
Throwing stuff around.
Well, he called me after he'd already like tried to realign it like 3
help
times.
me fix it. Help me fix it.
Help me fix it. And by that point, it was so curled, and it just wasn't going to work. So like, just order one more, and I promise you, we will make it work with 4 hands the first time.
We did. So I ordered another one. So I got $50 in this board, which you could buy for less. You can buy one of those boards online for less than that. But, at that point.
It's a really cool board, and I really enjoy the game. It's like a total battle, but with just cards. And because I enjoy Hearthstone too. Yeah. And so it's like it's a real card game like Hearthstone. So
yeah, it has a little bit of a difference of it than like Magic or something, is that it plays off of like these lanes. So you have your infantry, which can be played up close. You have 3 lanes on your side and 3 lanes on your opponent's side. You can play cards into your infantry, into your I don't know what's the second one, archery, and then the second one, the last one is like your cannons or your ranged, the ballistas and stuff. And then each card that you have you basically build a deck. So I have the 2 official decks that came with like the PlayStation 4 version of the Witcher game. They released two boxes with 4 different factions in there, and they have enough cards where you can build a deck. And there's deck building parameters. They have to have so many of such cards and whatnot. But basically, all the cards just have our numbers on them and a couple of a symbol that tells which lane they're played in. And then there's a few of them that have special abilities. Like they'll double the number of everybody else in their lane on your side, or you can play a spy, which gives a few points to your opponent, but then he can trigger something else, like you can draw a card off your deck. Because the biggest thing in this game is you build this deck of 30 or so cards, and you're probably max going to see 13 of them the whole game. So you have to build a really lean deck, because you're not, unless you have cards that let you dig through your deck, you're not going to see very many of them. So,
and I found like the season cards weren't. I don't think, at least I didn't really utilize them as much. Yeah, the weather cards.
You can play weather cards that affect everybody. It will, like, there's rain that will affect the archers. No, rain affects the the first line, whatever it is, the infantry, and then fog affects the archers, and it just makes everybody in that row worth
I tend
one.
to stay away from those only because I don't want to be hurting myself.
They screw you too.
Yeah, they screw you. So I just.
But if you don't have any in that lane and somebody else has a lot, it's good. If you have like one card to draw them out to get a whole bunch of people in that, and then I guess
I shouldn't have said that.
That's true.
Away my secret.
But all you're trying to do is it's just adding up your number of points on your cards, and you're trying to beat the other person. But you're also there's a bluffing aspect to it, because at any time you can pass, and there's 3 rounds to the game, and you can pass in the first round after playing like one card, and then if you play a really high card, they might have to play one of their really high cards or a few cards to catch up to you. And then you only get that many cards through the whole game. So the next round, you will have more cards than them. It's about getting an advantage on the card number.
I think we're pretty even on the win score.
Oh, no, you beat
me
several times on that one.
But I think you came back. Oh, that's the
No,
one.
I only won one game.
Where we played like 4 in a row, and you only won the last one.
Yeah, the last one.
And then you're like, okay, we're done.
Let's quit now. No, but you had a better deck than me. Like, you just had built a better deck. I think you played the Nilfgaardians, and I played the Elves, the Scoia'tael, and they just play differently. And I had a big fat deck full of all these cool cards, but I wasn't getting to them, and you had a really lean deck with really high, just nothing but high power cards. And so you built a better deck than me. But we need to play that one more because we've got 2 decks that we've never even tried. So that's Gwent, basically from the Witcher video game series, but played in real life, which I prefer. So lastly, we're going to talk about another one in that Mayday, just for 2 series, and it's Patchwork by Uwe Rosenberg. And Leandra, you really like this game, right? I
do. I never win, but I enjoy playing. So you get a square in front of you like a quilt. That's the whole point. Is you're building a quilt with patches
with Tetris-like pieces.
Yeah.
Right?
So yes. So each person gets a square, and then you lay out these little Tetris quilt pieces, and you have to go in a row.
There's a big circle of them around the table. You lay them out.
And they have buttons on them. And so the buttons are extra points, correct?
Mm-hmm. They're your resource. They're points and resources.
Yeah. And so, of course, the crazier the shape of your Tetris piece, the more points they are. And the whole idea is to fill up your whole entire quilt, and then not leave a whole lot of blank spaces, but there's chances to get one little single piece to fill in some blank space. I lose every single time I play this. He's so good at it, but I still really enjoy playing.
I think it's a really cool game, and it's just Tetris basically in a board game form, which I like. And I think it's cool how, like, the pieces that give you the most buttons, because they have buttons printed on them, that's how much they cost. So you have to have that many buttons to buy them, and they cover more squares. But then also, whenever you cross these certain thresholds on the score track, or it's basically, the score track is a timer. It's not really a score track. It's a timer that every time you move to get the pieces, you have to move like a pawn up to 3. You can take wherever the pawn's sitting in that circle we talked about, you can get 3 pieces, up to 3 pieces in front of it, and you move your little pawn to the piece you take. And for every piece you cross, or for every the piece you take, it has time and buttons on it. So you have to pay the time, which is on the little track. And every time you cross a certain threshold on there, you get a payout. And so you look at your board and you get all the buttons that are on your board. So it's cool because you have to pay for them at one point, but then the next time you cross that threshold, you're going to get those back from those tiles. And I think it's just cool because it's that push-pull of like, I'm totally broke, but if I can just skip, and now I get all these buttons. So and
you're so cute because like when you find a game that you like, you'll always like, oh well, those cardboard buttons aren't good enough, No. So we have to go 45 minutes away to Hobby Lobby, and we have to search. We're on a search for the exact right size of blue buttons.
Never did really find exactly the right ones.
But you do that often. You always want the real coins for the money, and the real buttons are, the better cubes and. Yeah, that's a thing.
I like pimping out games.
I know you do.
I don't know. I do that for games I've never even played too. Like I'll get a game and I'll be like, oh, I bet I could find like a crystal that's not cardboard for that. And then I buy it and then the game just sits there and I haven't played it either.
Well, when we first started playing, what game was it? You sleeved every single card in the deck.
Well, that's not that weird. People sleeve games all the time. Love Letter. That's what you made fun of me because I sleeved Love Letter.
You sleeved every card in Love Letter.
That's not that many. I've got games that have like 400 cards that are sleeved. But the reason I sleeve Love Letter is because it's like if you bend a card in Love Letter, we're playing with these people who don't like. You play Love Letter with people that haven't played games or anything, and they're over there bending those cards around and stuff. And like once you mark a card and you know what it is, you've ruined the game. So that's why I sleeved Love Letter.
You have a. People come over here and they're like, okay, well, we know we can't have any food in the man cave until he starts drinking. and we know we can't bend the cards, and we know when we're playing we have to have napkins to wipe our greasy fingers on, or else Ben's gonna get on us.
Well, that just makes good sense. What kind of animals are you?
Animals.
But anyway, so Patchwork, you know what's cool about it is he's taken that idea. Like, he came out with Patchwork, and you know he's the guy that designed Caverna. You really like that too, and you won't know that by name.
Nope.
Caverna is also, it's the one about the dwarves in the caves where you're building up your cave, and you're got your animals outside your cave, and you put your little different rooms inside your cave.
I do remember that one. That's the one with the
really cool
the
meeples
dogs and the
sheep
mules.
and yep.
That one is fun.
Yeah, it's an awesome game, but it's a big, heavy, long game.
It is a long game.
And this is his.
But they actually have like the little pieces, the little wood pieces of all the
for
animals.
everything, for wood and for like pumpkins and everything. Yeah, it's a great game. I love Caverna. But he took this design from Patchwork, that Tetris idea, and he's ran with it, because he's come out with 2 games now since then that use that same one. He came out with a multiplayer version of Patchwork, pretty much, that's called Cottage Garden, where I think it's up to 4 people can play, and you're like putting flowers in your garden. And I played it. It was all right. And then he made a big, huge Euro game in the fashion of like Caverna or Agricola that he designed, called Feast for Odin, which is this big, huge, like 3-4 hour long game that takes that same idea where you get this big board and you're trying to do worker placement, sort of like Caverna, to fill up your board, buy pieces to fill up your board and get your economy going and everything. But you can keep buying more boards, so you can keep buying more to get more points, And it was awesome, but man, it was a beast of a game. So I like the simplified version in Patchwork. I think it's perfect. It's a really, really good game. And any other 2-player games you could think of? Or anything you want to say?
I figured you would have had it out. The Leapfrog game.
Leapfrog. Oh, Haru Ichiban.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have brought that out. That is another game by Bruno Cathala. It's a 2-player, kind of an abstract type game, where basically all you have to do is make these different designs out of your lily pads. You have lily pads, your opponent has lily pads, and you can make a square for like 1 point, a 1 by or 2 by 2 square out of your lily pads, or you can make a diagonal line of 3 for 1 point, or a diagonal line of 5 for like 5 points. And the whole thing is just to get 5 points and you win. And it just goes back and forth. It's a really cool abstract game because it goes off of if the person who goes first, they get to like pick where they put their little frog down, right? And then, or their lily pad. And then the person who goes second gets to pick where the next one that has to be moved is on the next turn. So it kind of gives a little bit to both players. And so you have to be strategic on both sides. And it's a bidding game. It's like, I'm not explaining it well, but it has bidding in it too, where you're bidding for who goes first and who doesn't. And I should have brought that one out because I really like that. And it's got a thing where you're flipping over your bidding tokens, and if you do the same one, you have to ribbit.
Yeah, who ribbits first?
Whoever ribbits first wins. So it's silly like that, but you had to come up with something.
We were playing it where we were supposed to be quiet, and in the ribbit part comes up, ribbit.
Oh yeah, because
not trying to yell. Yeah,
yeah. That's Haru Ichiban. That's a really good game, and there's an app version of it. That's really good to just try it out. So I think it's like $1 on the Google Play Store.
Really?
So yeah, for the app. So I think that'll pretty much wrap it up for our 2-player segment. We probably have more that we could think of, but for right now, we'll end it there, and we're going to move on to our segment IRL. Okay. I really got to work on the music for that.
Yep.
Segue. Now I haven't thought at all about what I was going to talk about. Have you?
Me neither. Not one little bit. Let's just go for it.
Well, there was the big 4th of July weekend this weekend. Mm-hmm. So, I don't really think anything amazing happened. We blew a bunch of shit up. Yeah, we just, we live in Redneckville, so the entire town looks like Vietnam. It's just like there's little UE helicopters floating down and smoke billowing out everywhere across the town. You can't even see 3 feet in front of your face.
The people next to where we were, they had their, is it called a mortar?
Yeah, mortars.
It had the tower must have tipped because it was going off underneath their car in their driveway. There's no parental supervision on that one. There couldn't have been. I mean, these big, huge 6 of them going off right underneath the car.
Yeah, that's super dangerous.
Silly children.
But yeah, I like fireworks, but I'm getting, I don't know. I'm
3
getting
nights is much.
Yeah,
It's too much.
after the second night of big booms, I was like, last night I was like, I'll just let all these kids do it. I don't even want to do any of it. So I just sat back and relaxed last night. But it's fun. I mean, it just watching your money burn up in space is always exciting.
Well, yeah.
But Lily is finally of the age where she can shoot some off now herself, and of course she got burned as always because there's no way these things are not made for safety. So she got a little pop burn on her, and she's finally a woman now. She's been initiated into the ways of the world.
And fireworks.
Yep.
Dang
But she had a really good time shooting off Roman candles and stuff
those
and
are her
smoke
new
bombs.
faves.
They must have lit off 300 smoke bombs
had
last
to
night,
have.
those kids. It was crazy. So, I mean, we did that. And today...
Tomorrow's our 16th
Oh,
anniversary of
Today
when we met.
is our 16th
Tomorrow.
meeting anniversary. Excuse me, tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
The 6th, 2 days after I had been to a big, huge bash on the 4th of July, and then I went to the bar, not trying to meet anyone,
Nope, not at
especially
all.
not the love of my life. Next thing you know, married, 11 years, tied down, dragging that ball and chain.
Man, that's rough, baby.
Now, I was going to talk today about how was a motivational personal trainer for you.
You heard today. You totally got me off my butt today. I have just kind of had a humph day. I didn't really want to do anything and didn't want to work out. And I may have eaten some elf cookies today.
Some elf cookies, or
Let's not.
I don't care.
let's not
It's so
go
funny to
into
me because you're saying that
details.
you're like admitting this like you're in a confessional.
I
and like
am
I'm
in
the
a
priest. I'm
confessional.
like 10 Hail Marys and some jumping jacks.
Well, yeah, it's my recent health and fitness it's a big thing for me. It's a year and a half in, and today I just said fuck it. I just didn't do anything, and so I come home and Ben's like, "No, you're gonna work out," and I'm like, "I don't want to."
Well, basically, I knew I needed to work out, and so I knew you were going to give me an out, and I was like, "Don't take the out.
Give you an
Don't
out.
take the out." So I was like, "No," I said, "I'll turn this around and I'll just be Mr. Motivational
You did
Man."
great, baby.
But it was basically because I didn't want to give myself the excuse not to do it, So
you pushed me, and I burned off a whole 2 elf cookies that I ate.
yeah, I'm drinking a beer right now that's taking back all of my workouts, so it's pretty much pointless. But we can say that we did it.
Whoop, whoop.
So I think that's pretty much for the IRL, and that's going to pretty much wrap up this episode. I think it might end up being a little bit shorter than the other, but by the time I splice in the audio clips and stuff, it'll probably be about the same. And we'll see you here next time for episode 3, Revenge of the Third episode.
You're forgetting the ending line.
Oh, yeah. We'll see you back next week to talk about some such other things. That was better than Revenge of the Third. Anyway. I promised Vaughn that I would end this in a one certain way, and there's no way you could possibly end it without this.
I'm sorry,
It's
everybody.
It's our new sign off. And we'll see you next week.
Oh my God.
Later. Say bye.
Bye. Stop playing that. No one wants to hear you fart.
What do you mean? It was my phone. Thanks again for listening to the NSFWP podcast. You can find us on the web at nsfwppodcast.com and on Facebook and Twitter at NSFWP Podcast. You can also find me on Twitter at Meeple of Madness. Come on back next week for another great episode. See ya.